him in the polls more than the pandemic has. When you look at the polling right now, Donald Trump's reaction to the killing of George Floyd, the fact that he's made us more divisive, the fact that he used the military, the fact that he says don't even touch our military bases that are named after Confederate soldiers. He's like, Larry, he's like a lonely old white guy sitting in his room somewhere in the White House, and history is just passing him by. Even most Republicans, Larry, now support Black Lives Matter and support trying to unite the country over race. Donald Trump is all by himself. We're passing him by on these issues.
Why hasn't he offered some moral crusade about race? He sees what's happening in the country and around the world. Does he have no empathy?
Larry, I say in my book, I've never in my life seen a human being like this who is humanly incapable of empathy. You've known Trump a long time. Donald Trump is incapable of putting anyone or anything ahead of himself. All he cares about is himself. He doesn't give a damn about what's going on around the country right now at all. I mean, so he's incapable of dealing with it. And you combine all of that, Larry, with he doesn't care, and he's always had a racist bent to him. And I really don't think he's a very smart man. And so I just don't think he understands what's going on.
Okay, if he loses, what happens to the GOP?
I think the Republican Party's dead, no matter what. I think it's gone, Larry. I think the Republican Party is breaking up before our eyes. I think the party is going to be in the wilderness for a long, long time. Go back to where I started. Donald Trump won because he listened to 80% of the Republican voters out there. Now, it was a bunch of BS he fed them, but he listened to them. They are still with him. And so when Trump loses, they're not with these other never Trumpers. I think the party's breaking up, and I think it's going to be in the wilderness for a while, and hopefully a decent center-right party eventually will replace it.
Newt Gingrich said for him to win, he can't beat Biden on personality. He can't beat him on stature. He'll have to run on a major radical party, run against Biden as a radical. Do you see that?
How pathetic has somebody like Newt become? Again, Newt ought to just retire and not say another word. Talk about a guy who has sold his soul to Trump. Newt Gingrich doesn't believe a word he says about Trump. But he's right, Larry. Donald Trump has nothing to run on. So he's going to play the old Nixon playbook of law and order. He's going to try to scare people. That's what they do on Fox News. Tucker Carlson and Hannity and Laura Ingraham. They do what Trump wants them to do, and they're trying to scare their voters into thinking that black people and rioters and looters are coming after them. I don't think fear is going to cut it, but that's all Trump has.
Joe, always great talking to you. Talk to you again before the election.
You're the best, Larry King. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, man. We'll be right back with more politicking. Politicking. Great pleasure to welcome actor and activist Kendrick Sampson. His credits include HBO's Insecure and The Vampire Diaries. He's co-founder of the nonprofit initiative Build Power. He joins us to talk about his work in the fight for racial justice and against the man in the White House. Kendrick joins us from Los Angeles. With all that's happened recently, Kendrick, and most recently in Atlanta, shooting a black man in the back who is unarmed, what's your state of mind right now?
My state of mind, especially after hearing about Rayshard Brooks, is that this is not, this violence isn't going to end. It's the same, I'm disheartened. There were 2 black trans women killed this weekend. There were 2 men hung from trees that they're investigating in California. Black people are still being disproportionately affected by COVID. And it is a rough time. It is a traumatizing time, and it's compounded trauma from the history of this country, and it's time to end it. It's time to end these systems and uproot these systems and plant and build new systems that actually care for us. I'm encouraged by a lot of the wins that are happening of school districts canceling their contracts with police departments, and Minneapolis city council voting to dismantle their police department, and different cities saying, I think San Francisco said that they were not going to use police for nonviolent crimes. There's things that are happening all over the country. We just met Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and myself, representing Build Power, just met with the city council here in Los Angeles to give a special presentation on reimagining public safety and defunding the police. And they heard us and they understood us, and they stand with the same ideologies. Now we need them to take action. But I'm encouraged by what the movement, but at the same time, I'm still, working through my own trauma and what we're seeing.
If the police are an extension of us, are we still a lot of racist country?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the foundation of this country is slavery and genocide. It's inextricable from the systems that were built up around, like slavery. The policing system was built and formed from slave catching. The prison system and jail system is the continuation of slavery under the guise of the 13th Amendment. Capitalism is inextricable from anti-blackness and enslavement of people and seeing people as property because of the color of their skin. So yeah, absolutely. The systems that we have, the white supremacists that we have in the White House, is a symptom of the culture that has been built here, and the systems that are built here are inherently racist. So absolutely, we still deal with that.
How, Kendrick, do you explain that the killing of George Floyd has caused a much greater upbringing in the part of the world than even the killing of Martin Luther King? What's different now?
I think George Floyd was like the straw that broke the camel's back. You had Breonna Taylor, you had Sean Reed, you had Philando Castile before that, and Sandra Bland, and countless others, Tamir Rice, and 609 here in Los Angeles County alone with Grishario Mack, and so many, right? We could spend this whole interview and beyond listing the amount of people who have been killed by police, because it still operates as a slave catching system to put slaves back into the prison system, right? And so people are fed up. It's an unprecedented health crisis, unprecedented unemployment, unprecedented economic crisis. And on top of that, we still have to deal with racism in these systems that are brutalizing us. Before George Floyd, you saw people being brutalized by police for not wearing masks. You saw people being profiled, Black people being profiled for wearing masks. So we damned if we do, damned if we don't, and I think that we're at a point where people are in their homes and imagining solutions, imagining better, because they have no choice, because they are in dire situations right now. And they are saying, we cannot go back to the world we knew. And they are fed up because we are going to face violence and brutality from these systems, regardless of if we leave our houses or not. Even stuck in our homes, we are still facing a system that a healthcare system that prioritizes profit over people. That is violent. And so people are fed up with the violence and they're done with it. And you have somebody who's encouraging it in the White House. So we're not going back, is what I think. We're in an unprecedented situation where people are saying, absolutely not. We cannot go back. The world we knew is done, and we're going to build better.
You're an advocate of defunding the police. Congressman James Clyburn, one of the true civil rights leaders, said he does not support the calling to defund the police, rather than saying restructuring law enforcement is a better title. Do you agree?
We don't all have to agree. You know, Angela Davis, who is a abolitionist and my president, would agree in that the systems have to end. You know, that oppressive systems are bad seeds. If a bad seed bears a bad tree, bears bad fruit. A good seed produces a good tree, produces good fruit. That's what we say in church. That is true. The system it was born from a bad seed of slave catching. It is not something that can be tinkered around the edges with and reformed one day. People have been trying to reform policing for decades. It hasn't worked because it's the same system that we've had for centuries. We need a new system. If we can't imagine better than this system, we don't have no imagination. We have such a low bar. We can have unarmed, non-law enforcement first responders. We can have mental health care infrastructure. This is $100 billion. We're talking over $115 billion that we spend on police departments alone. I'm not talking about sheriff's departments and such. I'm talking about police departments alone, right? And that money could be invested in communities for preventative measures, violence intervention programs, actually funding our schools and having after school programs and counselors and nurses in our schools. Why do we have police officers who are armed and dangerous who make us less safe in our schools? And in many schools, you have a huge police presence and no counselors, nobody to deal with the trauma, no nurses, nobody to deal with the health problems. We can have these systems. We can actually take care of the root causes, but we are, as a country, deciding to invest in violent systems that are oppressive and have been proven to be oppressive instead of actually investing in care and healing and wellness of our communities.
What is Build Power?
Build Power is a nonprofit initiative that was formed with myself and Tia Oshaw and Mike De La Rocha to organize Hollywood around these issues, to create safe spaces where we can imagine different, where we can connect with organizers all over the country who are changing the world, community organizers. And we realized how oppressive Hollywood is. I mean, Hollywood has added and aided this oppression of police brutality and glorifying police violence and producing anti-Black storylines for a very long time and criminalizing and demonizing us and our mental health, portraying mental health as violent and such, right? And we have to be a part of the solution. And there are so many people that want to be a part of the solution, that have these huge platforms, that are creatives, that can direct and produce and write and act in films and create a new world. And we have a responsibility to imagine different and act on that. And we influence culture and politics. So we wanted to organize Hollywood around that to make sure that we are being a part of the solution.
What was it like to be shot with a rubber bullet?
Traumatizing. I was shot 7 times with rubber bullets, so I had chunks of skin taken out, and I don't want to gross anybody out, but like just a few days ago was the first time I was able. This was a couple weeks ago that it happened, to get the skin from hanging off my leg, and I mean, it takes the wind out of you. I still have a permanent scar right here where they shot me in my chest. My arm was swollen for a while where they shot me in my arm, and they shot me 5 times in my leg. And my buddy had 2 bones broken in my buddy Dion had 2 bones broken in his skull. My assistant was beat with batons and had his shin split open. To where you could see his bone. He had to get stitches. Just got him out 2 days ago. So it is absolutely traumatizing. What drove me forward was everybody was experiencing the same brutality that we're out there peacefully demonstrating. And I don't condemn anybody who's not being peaceful, because these systems are so violent. I don't understand why you wouldn't expect violence, right? But the fact is that we were peaceful, right? That's just a fact, right? And we were met with violence only from the LAPD. They were the instigators, and to do that and then go to the city council right now, when we presented to city council, it's very historic, you know, Black Lives Matter being invited to do a special presentation on reimagining public safety. And the people that greeted us, was a police officer escorted us in, and a police officer was used to stand there and take our temperature before we went into the chamber. Why? You have staff, You have medical professionals. It is just another example of a waste of money that could be invested in something that actually is healing to us.
Kendrick, what do you make of our president?
I think he's trash. I think he's a trash human being. I think he is a white supremacist. He has been very blatant about showing it. And I want to encourage people that our ancestors didn't ever win by working within systems that were built to oppress. They were built for injustice, right? And so we have to think about what many countries have done when a leader is fascist and oppressive, blatantly oppressive, and ill-equipped to handle any sort of leadership. And I have a lot of curse words that I want to add in there, but I'm doing my best to be respectful of you. But I think he is a trash human being, and there's no leadership quality in him. And we need to think about how to work around these systems, outside of these systems, in order to remove him from office. Not impeachment in these systems, the methods that they've instituted, and tell us the parameters that they've set for us to achieve justice, because we're not going to achieve it in those systems. Make sure that he's not an option by November. He shouldn't be an option. That is not democracy. Choosing between him and another candidate, any other candidate, is not democracy.
Hey, Kendrick, thanks for your time today. Always great seeing you.
You as well. Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for joining me on this edition of Politicking. Remember, you can join the conversation on my Facebook page or tweet me at King's Things, and don't forget to use the Politicking hashtag. And that's all for this edition of Politicking.